Welcome back. Begin with the upcoming roundtable discussion, the entrepreneurial heartbeat, the engine that transforms the world, our motto. This discussion will convene remarkable entrepreneurs whose journeys exemplify innovation in action. The discussion will highlight key insights from the report, including increasing apprehension of failure among entrepreneurs globally, women encounter obstacles in entrepreneurship, including access to funding, and female entrepreneurs exemplify the positive relationship between sustainability and entrepreneurship. They are more committed to social and environmental impact. We are pleased to announce that we will be able to count on the following: Borja Cabezón, CEO of ENISA, National Innovation Company, will moderate this discussion. Among the panelists, Amaia Rodríguez, CEO of Gravity. She represents sustainability and digital entrepreneurship, leading a startup accelerator for women through the Cartier Foundation, primary sponsor of the James New Research of Female Entrepreneurship. Javier Diaz, CEO of Madit Metal, a leader in Industry 4.0 and additive manufacturing, shaping the future of Euskadi's industrial sector. And Andy Aguilar, the Entrepreneur 21st Award winner from ENISA. She represents Digital.Health, women and migrated entrepreneurial talent, and her company specializes in AI-based dermatological diagnosis. Let's welcome them with a big round of applause, please.
Hola, buenos días, good morning. Roundtable. I am happy we meet great people who demonstrate that entrepreneurship depends on a wide range of factors that include personal aspects, business opportunities, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem itself. Thank you very much, Amaia, Javier, Andy. Thank you to the audience for sharing with us. First, people must know you. I would like to introduce yourself and comment on the activity of your companies. And please emphasize the impact you generate. So if you want, Amaia.
So, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah? No? Oh, no. Okay. It's a pleasure to be here. And, well, I'm Amaia Rodríguez, and I am the co-founder and CEO of EEB-OVE. EEB-OVE is a startup, and we collect plastic from the ocean with traditional fishermen in 4 Mediterranean countries, for now. And every day when they go out fishing, they also collect the plastic waste. And we have created a waste management system where we put containers in every fishing port, and all this plastic we are trying to create recycled raw materials for different applications, as well as products and designing materials. We are working nowadays with over 7,000 traditional fishermen in Greece, Italy, Egypt, and Spain. We are looking now to expanding into Tunisia and Morocco, maybe, very focused on the Mediterranean Sea. And our main focus is also the R&D. We are facing huge challenges to create raw materials that the industry can use, because at the end of the day, we are trying to recycle ocean plastic, and it is a huge challenge. We lack of technology. We are very focused also in recycling fishing gear and fishing nets, one of the main threats to ocean pollution. And so we have created this waste management system to end plastic pollution in our oceans.
Javier.
So, my name is Javier Diaz. I am the co-founder and CEO of Madit. We are a company based here in Bilbao, focused on metal 3D printing, metal additive manufacturing. We provide set manufacturing services to all the different industries. We have currently built up a new facility of 2,000 square meters here close to the Bilbao airport, in which we have 8 machines. We are the largest machine company in Spain by far. We are 17 employees, 50% of them engineers, the rest technical graduates. So we have focus on high degree of technical people in our staff. Just to give you some figures about what we do, last year we ended the year with 1.7 million in sales, 40% of exports, mainly in Europe but also outside of Europe. And our focus in the company is really to increase the productivity of the process, extend to different industries, not just aerospace and medical, focus on all the wide range of industries that could benefit from these technologies, and try to democratize how this new technology can reduce the impact of raw material usage as also energy usage through the manufacturing route.
Okay, well, I'm Andy. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Legit.Health. I'm originally from Mexico, but I've been living in Spain, especially in Bilbao, since almost 10 years. And what we do in Legit.Health is trying to help with a big problem, that is the lack of specialists in dermatology field. So we have created an artificial intelligence medical device that helps with the detect, assessment, and monitoring of over 323 skin pathologies. We have presence right now in 9 countries in Europe. We're almost 30 people, and we are growing. We expect to be in the United States for the end of this year. And we are trying to solve this problem or democratize healthcare in this field and accelerate all the process of the diagnosis, because there is a lot of misdiagnosis and late diagnosis, and especially in a big problem that is skin cancer. So we're trying to help with this problem.
Okay, great. Once the presentation done, I would like to go to the personal part. The data from Jim report indicates that the fear of failure has increased, and that although people detect opportunities for entrepreneurship, this should prevent them from taking the step. What has your experience been in this regard, and what is your opinion of this conclusion? Maya?
Okay, so I've been an entrepreneur for 5 years now. And we were speaking about how fortunate I've been to dedicate my life to something I'm really passionate about. But also, creating a business in Spain is quite a challenge. Mainly because we have a culture of risk-averse traditions and the way we do things. Actually, I'm one of the few entrepreneurs in my closed social circles. And we have a lack of references, near us. So this is a challenge to think that you can be an entrepreneur. But there are also many resources now that the government is creating, the private sector wants to impulse. And my experience has been great. I've also co-founded Gravity Wave with my younger brother, so also not being alone when creating a business, I think, helps a lot in navigating this crazy journey of being an entrepreneur. But yeah, mainly we face a culture of risk-averse, and this is a huge challenge. So if we go deeper to the educational system and how to replicate what the Basque government is doing here in other communities, I believe that's the way, to make people think they can be anything, they can do anything, and it's okay if you fail, because you can do other things in your life.
Thank you, Maya. I don't know if Javier, Andy...
Yeah, in my case, I was working for 9 years at ATP Aero, an aerospace engine manufacturer. So I never thought that I would create a company, but at a certain moment, I detected an opportunity and I decided to move forward. Something that you have mentioned, Amaia, is here in the Basque Country, you have big support to do that. So we started by asking if this could be a reasonable thing to be prepared, and we receive a lot of support, mentoring, financing support. So it's something that there is a lot of risk on it, but really if you have someone or certain institutions that can support you on doing that business, I think it's something that it can be managed if you have the really good ideas and you are pushing what is required to create a company.
Yeah, well, I agree with both of you, especially Amaia. You mentioned that we have to change the educational system because the fear of failure, it's big in every step of our life. It's part of the nature of life. So we always want to have fear to initiate to a company, a life, a partner, everything. So we need to see how the other cultures work with this. We can mention Silicon Valley, for example. If you failure creating a company, is that you have experience. Mm-hmm. You have experience, you have gained experience, and that's good for you. And here, I think we create more like an enemy of ourselves when we failure. So we have to change that perspective and help people to be able to fail because they gain experience with every step they're making. So I think that's important.
Yes, I agree. What other factors are an obstacle to entrepreneurship? I don't know if you identify more obstacles to.
I'm going to say that the access to funding is one of the main, but I think that happened everywhere. But here in Europe or Spain, I think we can accelerate all this process because to get grants, for example, public grants, you have to have some of customers. You have to validate your product in the market, or even to get access to private investment. But in order to get access to the customers, to put your product in the market, you need that investment previously to develop the product. So it's a big problem that you have to have, I don't know, all the customers' background first, but you can get it if you don't have the investment.
Yes, I know.
So we need to change that process because we don't gonna evolve in the market, or we'll never get access to that funding. We can go with banks, but we also can have access with banks if we don't have the customers or the money previously. So,
but we are lucky because we have ENISA.
Yeah, we have ENISA. That's a big help. But we already have ENISA, so that's helping us a lot. We get access, but I think that is one of the main steps that we have to change for creating a company.
So from my point of view, is something about you want to create a company, you are expert or you know something about your product or your idea or something. One of the main barriers to have success is the amount of things that you don't know. So something that the ecosystem should propose or should emphasize is try to teach you or train you in all the topics that need to be covered. Taxes, for example, is a cash flow problem that all of us will suffer. Marketing or how to do in the best way. Networking or how you select the right companies or the right members, strategy, operational aspects. So I think that we can reduce the fear and the barriers trying to explain with real experts on those topics how to deal with all of those topics and not just asking for your product, how to improve it. Cover the rest of the aspect of the company. That is really, really a key point.
Mm-hmm. And also when speaking about how public administrations can help startups, we always think about financing, money. Give me money, give me grants, and I will succeed. And the conversation is much deeper. Organizations and public administrations have the power of buying things. Mm-hmm. They need services, they need products. So how can we create an ecosystem where first the example is the public administration and they support small businesses, innovative ideas, local products, local manufacturing, because we need customers. You mentioned it, Andy. if even the local administration is not supporting us and doesn't believe or doesn't take the risk of buying what we are trying to create, how can we sell it to a big corporation where the risk, they don't want to risk anything? So I think there are many parts and many ingredients to support startups, to support innovative ideas, and to accompany these projects along all the different processes we live, no? Because at first is the seed. Okay, I have an idea, I want to sell this idea, I have nothing, and I need some money. And then you evolve and you need other things. So, what are the ingredients that we need to put on the table and create that recipe, not only giving money? Like, I don't think that's the answer, or it's not the only answer.
Thank you. Another of the conclusions of the World Report that also shows how the world works in all aspects, the difference when it comes to finding financing when you are a woman entrepreneur. What do you think about it?
That's a good question. I think that I haven't faced that problem firsthand. We have secure funding. But I heard from other women entrepreneurs that they are really having this problem. And one of the main things I think is when investors talk to you, if they are talking with a man, they want to know about the growth potential. Mm-hmm. But when they're talking with a woman or women, they talk about the risk mitigation. So that's changed all the panorama that we are creating. But also, I think that there are a lot of investors, a lot of VCs right now trying to get access to women entrepreneurs. That's good. But when they talk to you, I want to invest in you because you're a woman. That's not the way. I want you to invest in my company. Yes. Because being a woman is not an achievement. Yes. that I have made. So I created a company, invest in the growth of growth potential of my venture. So that's something that we need to change, really.
Javier, do you want to say?
From my point of view, I have not seen really barriers, at least with institutions. I have not gone through investment rounds, so I don't know in that aspect. In the institutions, I have seen during the last 5 years many topics in which really has been covered with extra points or with extra financing for women. So I think that is covered. Maybe with the investment rounds, there is a lack of, I don't know, reliability or something, but that I expect to change in the future.
Yeah, my experience has been, good because we got the money, we got the investment we were looking for, but there is also a lack of confidence in women. So it is actually something that is happening. There is this example that I really like to mention, and is when men and women are applying for a job, men will apply if they fulfill 20% of the requirements, and women will only apply if they fulfill 80% of the requirements of the job. So this is the difference. When selling something that doesn't exist, we as women are facing a lack of confidence. And how can we create and build women that believe in themselves, no? And this, I go back to having references, having examples of women that are entrepreneurs, that are successful, that they tell their stories, and not only having in your mind Elon Musk or Steve Jobs. I want to be this woman, and she's changing the world. So how can we also promote these stories about women changing the world, so little girls want to be like them? But from my experience, we met like 30 plus different potential business angels. None of them were women. Out of 30 plus potential business angels that we met, and we sat at the table with them, none of them were women. So I didn't see anybody like me sitting at the table and making the decisions. And this also, somehow it intimidates or changes a bit the conversation, no? So it's not only about, okay, let's give money to women because we need women entrepreneurs receiving money, you know, okay, 50% of the money goes to women. I need to check that on my list. But how do we seat women in the decision-making tables? So we have women deciding where the money is going. And women invest more, I think, someone before was telling about this. Women invest more in sustainability, in impact. They not only see the money, but the value that a business will create. So where do we need the women? You know, not only women entrepreneurs, but also women investors and women in directing VCs and women in ENISA and women, you know, in many places, no? But yeah, there is a lack of having a woman in front of you.
Completely agree. We conclude by talking about the ecosystem. The data in the report tell us that there is still a long way to go because there is a lack of an environment that ensures entrepreneurship. What do you think about this, Javier?
In our case, we have not seen that. I think that we are quite fortunate of being here in Bilbao. We have Vizcaya, Basque Country. Also, we have received support from the central government. But at least here, there are a lot of programs trying to train you better, trying to found you with certain things not really to the direct cost or maybe for the investments. So there are different programs that try to cover and try to push to create this kind of company. So I don't agree with that point, but I think it's something that is only to this region.
You want to say something?
Yeah, there is also some lack of resources, no, here. I think where we are at the moment is my favorite example of how can things be done and how the Basque Country is creating these ecosystems where people want to be an entrepreneur because they have the right ingredients for their, you know, startup to be successful. But again, I go back to how startups are very different from any other company because we are trying to do something new and this takes longer time. So how can we look at innovation and, you know, changing the world also in a different way in taxes? It's so expensive to hire people and still we are creating jobs. Like you are 17 people in your company, we are 13. We will keep growing, but it's so hard for us to hire a new person. We think it not twice, but 10 times before hiring someone, because it's so hard for us. And we don't know next year what's gonna happen. We don't have this stable business where in 2 years, oh yeah, I will be by 2, or by 3, or by 10. We don't know. Mm-hmm. So how can we take what we don't know and put it in, you know, okay, if I don't, I'm not EBITDA positive or I don't earn any money, let's not pay taxes. Okay, save it for me when I'm rich, you know, in 10 years I will pay all your taxes. But if I'm not earning any money, it makes no sense. And this is a very strong barrier to start businesses. People see us suffering as entrepreneurs and say, what are you doing? This makes no sense. It only makes sense when you are big and you are generating a lot of money and sales. And so we need to rethink a bit the system to make it easy to bring your idea to the table and say, I'm going for it, you know, and not die in trying.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. Here in Bilbao, in the Basque Country, we have a lot of support. Taking from me, I'm from Mexico, and I decided to stay because I saw that potential here for the support with all the people that want to start a business. So I think all the incentive we have here is a great value. I think we have to give them more visibility because I talk with our entrepreneurs in Madrid or Valencia, in other places, that they don't know all the big potential we have here. And also people in Bilbao or in the Basque Country in general, they don't know all the support they can have here, and we have like this talent league, starting business in other places, where here we have a lot of support. but also all the bureaucracy, I think, is a big stopper when you start a business. And the tax incentive, I think that's a great way to start, because we don't have all the resources we need when we are starting a business. And growing in people, we have to do that because it is important to escalate the business. But if we don't have how to hire these people, how to secure that these people value all the money we're investing in them, and we have all that, I don't know, this talent leak, as we mentioned before. The government if the government don't support that and help us to get that people, it will be a big problem, because we are trying to grow, but we have big limits in this process. So I think the bureaucracy and tax incentive will be a game changer in this.
Okay, just for finish, could you share with us your dreams into the future?
Our dreams. Well, that's, I don't know, well, something that we are looking for. I'm going to speak with the company, with Legit.Health, because Legit.Health was created for a personal experience. I have been patient of dermatological disease from years. So my big dream is to have our technology all over the world, that all the people that receive dermatological care will be through Legit.Health.
Very good.
For us, I think that my dream is how to build or how to grow bigger than what we are today, how to start to compete against China, against the rest of Europe, that are our key competitors at this moment, and how to do that in a way that is efficient, but also is sustainable for the future. So not create smoke, create something that really is going to survive also for the future.
I have two dreams. Well, many dreams, but I will only share two here, okay? But one is, of course, taking Gravity Wave globally. I mean, I don't know if it will be taking Gravity Wave globally or collaborating with other companies around the world, but the end goal is to end plastic pollution in our oceans. So how can this one day be true? And the other one is being a reference, being that reference that we didn't have when we were starting with Gravity Wave, and making little girls and boys dream about being entrepreneurs and changing the world. Because our purpose is not to make 10 billion sales, but the purpose is to end plastic pollution in our oceans. But while this is our purpose, we are creating so much value to the economy, and this is, something that is retroalimenting itself. I don't know the word in English. So yeah, I mean, people can change the world building startups. So that is our dream, to people looking into Gravity Wave and saying, okay, they were trying to change the world, and it's possible. I want to do the same.
Okay, so it's a pleasure to hear you and know your dreams. I think that it's a very good conversation, and I think that we need you. So thank you very much. Thank you for the audience, and let's see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your insightful input and fruitful discussions. Entrepreneurial ecosystems shape the world. We were speaking about that earlier. They fuel economies, empower communities, and facilitate groundbreaking innovation. They can include all of us in it. To end this morning session, let's enjoy the roundtable titled Building Entrepreneurial Ecosystems to Transform the World. We'll explore the insights of the GEM 2425 Global Report. Moderating this critical discussion, we have the pleasure of having again Aileen Ionescu-Somers, GEM Executive Director. Joining us are panelists who bring invaluable expertise to the table: Ana Fernandez Laviada, professor at Universidad de Cantabria and GEM Spain Executive Director; Alicia Coduras, GEM NES Coordinator, GEM Global and GEM Saudi Arabia; Ehud Menipaz, Professor Emeritus at Ben Gurion University Dean, Holon Institute of Technology and GEM Israel; and Jeffrey Shea, Babson College, USA, GEM JERA Board Chair, and GEM USA. Let's welcome them with a big round of applause, please. Please wait a minute, they are microphoning. Okay, thank you.
Empiezas a pegar pan.
Ms. Ionescu-Somers, I'll give you the floor. Thank you.
Hello, I hope it's working. Is it working? Yes. Well, thank you for your patience. We all had to get connected. So it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity now of exploring a little bit with some of our really long-standing GEM experts to explore the findings of the report and to get some different perspectives, because here with us we have GEM Israel, we have GEM USA, And we have actually representing Saudi Arabia, but she's also the coordinator of our national expert survey, Alicia Coduras, and she can also speak for Saudi Arabia, which I think the report showed some very interesting findings for Saudi Arabia. But yes, we're keen to kind of show you that going beyond the global report, there's also a huge amount of national data, of course, that is investigated in depth by our national teams as soon as the global report is actually issued. But to remind you, you'll recognize Steve, who spoke to you this morning. And I'm just going to ask a very quick question to Steve to kind of remind people of some of the takeaways. And the question is, we called the subtitle of the global report is Entrepreneurship Reality Check. So why do you reckon this report is a reality check, Steve?
Okay, that's a good question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. It was really nice, by the way, to sit and listen to the vision and the dreams of young entrepreneurs. Lovely.
Yes.
And I can call you young entrepreneurs because almost everybody is young compared to me, okay? However, it's also important that the decisions we make, the actions we take, the policies we recommend are based upon evidence. And I keep emphasizing that GEM is about evidence. It's about the foundations. I probably don't need to remind you of the takeaways because I talked about them earlier, but if I get the chance, I will.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So can we start off? I mean, Ehud, you have been with GEM since the very beginning. I'd love a perspective from you on how do you see this report? You've heard the takeaways. You've probably reviewed the report itself, the executive summary. What's your? Can you kind of also benchmark against the GEM Israel experience?
Thank you. First off, I'm almost sure that with 26 years of experience with GEM, the word you've used regarding perspective is a good one. I think that you can ask me how it was in the old days. So before I answer your question, if I may, I'll take 60 seconds to tell you something which I believe is fairly unique. When I was invited to join GEM at the very beginning, there was a lady, a dear lady, the late Dr. Miri Lerner, whom Alicia, you remember, and she came to my office as a dean, and she said, "We need some money because we want to join GEM." I said, "What is this GEM?" She said, "You should fly to Babson College and talk to Bill Barger." I didn't know him, obviously, at the time. And I did take the challenge, and in the middle of the winter, I think it was December or January, early January, I flew into Logan Airport, and I took a taxi to Babson College. And it was a terrible ride. It was all snowy, very cold, no leaves on the trees, and I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to join GEM this way. And then I arrived to the Babson College, and I was greeted by Bill Bygrave. His smile, his warmness, and what I believe Jeff talked about this morning, his vision definitely caught, with me. And I said, fine, I'll be part of this great effort. Now let me give you a bit of a perspective. I think, Steve, you alluded to two things, I believe, which hit, very close home. First of all, your last slide, I believe, talked about the TEA, the TIs, we call it sometimes, weighted by population, and what we saw, and you used a great French sort of sentence there, basically saying, not much has changed in a way of this particular criteria. So the question is indeed, can we still find a difference in the different other criteria that will justify our mammoth research project? And I can tell you, Aileen, that we definitely can. Let me summarize this thing with the following perspective. AI is all around us. I found out that out of thousands of students that I had the pleasure of addressing over the years, as of now, about 95% of them are using already AI through ChatGPT and Claudia and other applications. So we are a little bit behind here, as I see it. And how do we fit it into our view of entrepreneurship? I think, Jeff, you said entrepreneurship is solving problems earlier today, right? Well, I'd like to suggest the following, just extending your definition. I think that if it is solving problems we are talking about, then there are two dimensions that are orthogonal to each other in a way of entrepreneurship. One of them is efficiency in solving problems, and the other one is effectiveness. By definition, effectiveness is doing the right things, and efficiency is doing the things in an appropriate way. Well, guess what? AI took care of efficiency. This would be done possibly by using any of the applications, and we'll do it faster, with less people, with better supply chains, optimizing on resources, etc. However, we now have to focus on the effectiveness dimension. In other words, doing the right things. In other words, using creativity and innovation in a way, and possibly communication, in a way that will make us as entrepreneurs do the right things. So my take now is that AI is not but the beginning of changing a little bit of our paradigm, as I said, from efficiency to effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Alicia, turning to you. So you've two, maybe can give us two perspectives here. On the one hand, it's actually quite interesting that you don't necessarily have to be a high-income country to have this attractive context for entrepreneurship. And that graphic is really revealing this year that somehow, you know, former high-ranking countries need to be looking at other players, and particularly the Middle East, for example. So maybe you can give us a perspective of why and how is this moving forward?
Sure. Yes. As you know, I am involved in GEM since the very beginning, like Ehud, and we have seen that the panorama has changed a lot, regionally speaking. Then, for example, at the beginning, it was very difficult for the academic community to accept very high tier rates in developing countries. They did not understand what we were talking about because it was new. But the tier rate is an indicator that suggests the situation of different countries about how many people is involved in entrepreneurship, understanding by entrepreneurship the most wide definition, that is any kind of business or initiative. Then what happened? When we started, the United States was quite in the middle, not at the top, because Uganda, for example, was 3 times, but the quality of businesses was not the same. Since then, regionally, the world has changed. For example, right now, the Middle East countries, especially the Gulf countries, are outstanding. You have seen the results that Steve presented. Why? Because these countries are involved in a big transformation. They want to spread and diversify types of businesses to not be so dependent on oil industries. So they have sent a strong message to their populations. We need entrepreneurs, but seriously. And we are going to develop plans to make this a reality. And we have seen how these GEM reports, when we started around 2016 to now, these countries really have progressed in the context, the tier rate, the quality of businesses, etc. So this is a standing out region. What happens in the United States? In the United States, more or less, you continue being the reference, okay? And yes, of entrepreneurship. And what's going on in Europe? In Europe, we are some gray. I'm sorry to say that, and it's excellent to see that there are new entrepreneurs and very young. But we need to be more passionate about entrepreneurship, and this has to do with the educational system. Education has been a key word that Amaia reminded us, and if we don't change the educational system, we are inserting fear in people. We are talking about fear of failure. And part of it, people fears what they don't know. So if the educational system is not saying optimistic messages about entrepreneurship, if we are not educating people on finance, because finance education is key to avoid risk aversion, you know? So this is what is going on in Europe, some gray. And then our tier rates are, well, 6%, 9%. If we want more dynamism, especially the educational system, and we are warning about it for 25 years now, needs to take the lead of making people optimistic and enthusiastic. If not, we are going to migrate. And sorry, and finally, in Asia, of course, there is a big tradition of dynamism, of commerce, and innovation. You know, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, all these countries have been innovative, and we are very dependent in Europe from them. In the pandemic, we could see how many resources of sanitarian products we needed from them, or we need still from them. So, well, it's a different culture. They are workers. They work a lot. They are persistent. And, of course, their tier rates are quite healthy. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn to you. And I guess in the past, the United States has been the top of the ranking. And then now you've seen a sort of, more checkered picture happening. We've just heard what Alicia has to say. We also know that we're kind of moving into an uncertain world right now. And I also know that you've prepped the GEM USA team to produce a report almost immediately. I think it'll be in the next couple of weeks. In the next couple of weeks, the USA report will come out. So I would imagine that you've already looked or poured through the data in real detail. So what are you extracting in terms of messages for the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the USA and for regulators, et cetera? Like, what would be your main messages?
Yeah, and I'm not on.
Oh, we need...
It's my big moment.
Yes.
Hello?
Just we need help with the microphone, if that's possible.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello.
There you go. There you go. Yes.
They put it on mute. They didn't want me talking until it was my turn. Absolutely don't give him. So Steve, I have to start off here. You said before, when you were talking about the report in general, 160,000?
160,000.
Over 160,000? And how many, it translated to 6 million data points?
More than 12 million.
More than 12 million. Okay, I didn't study for all 12 million. I only studied the first 6 million. So here goes. I think one thing that before I get into what we're seeing in the United States is to think about this. Take the reverse perspective and think about where would we be right now if we did not have the GEM longitudinal data for the last 25 years. We would basically just be speculating how each one of our countries were doing, what we should be doing, what an ecosystem looks like. And I think that's really important because, you know, as both Ehud and Alicia were talking about, they were talking about these comparisons, right? You know, the United States and versus different regions of the world, and we're making those comparisons. And although we might not see within our country changes during a specific year in one of the metrics, we're able to, and because we have 25 years of data, we're able to compare to other similar or by income group or region of the world. We're able to compare ourselves to them, which I think is really, really important. So back to the United States, some of the the findings that we had that are, keeping us curious. I think the GEM data, because of our 12 million data points, we could just talk forever about this. And I could talk forever about the US report, and Aileen is like, please don't. But a few of the key findings that we have. First of all, for the first time ever, the 18 to 24 age group actually leads the way in terms of TEA activity.
Right.
One of the things that's interesting is in the United States, and as the entrepreneurs were talking about in the United States, we seem to have no fear of failure at all. We're just go out there and, fail every day if we have to. Apparently, our children, the younger entrepreneurs may have taken that to heart too much because they are starting more, but they're actually closing at the highest rate as well.
Right.
Right? So that to me says, and this is one of my fears as an entrepreneurship educator, is that we're telling people, the message isn't fully delivered. We're telling people it's okay to fail, but we're not closing the loop and saying, it's okay to fail if you tried really, really hard, if you did your homework, if you really worked on it. So we have that. And then the other one that we're finding that's very interesting, I'm sure it will become, it will be the theme throughout the whole days that we have together here, is artificial intelligence. One of the things that we're seeing with artificial intelligence is that artificial intelligence now takes the startup. They're born with artificial intelligence in them, and it enables them to actually compete with the existing businesses that are maybe 5 to 10 years old. It closes the gap. I can start a business with 5 employees, and it looks like we're 30 employees on day one because we all know how to use AI.
Right.
That, to me, is really exciting. I think we're going to see that gap. What it means for the existing businesses is that you need to embrace the technology. You need to figure out what the smaller companies are going to do, because otherwise they're just going to catch up to you and pass you pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, it is an issue of, I would think, concern that the entrepreneurial community has this low level of knowledge on the implications of AI for the business. Myself, the other night, I was at an event where I met a CEO who used to be a CEO of a major company, and he has just now retired, and major aviation company. Two, in fact, in a row, 2 major aviation companies. And I asked about the implications of AI for aviation, apart from just the efficiencies and going to the airport. And honestly, I won't reveal who it was, but didn't give a very convincing reply as to the implications. And I think it's not only entrepreneurs, it's actually the business community as a whole really don't have a vision of how AI is going to impact the sector, not to mind the business, So Steve, do you have some other observations on that AI side of things to share?
Yes. One of the things that made interpreting the data difficult this year was that when we ask those questions about AI, we get an awful lot of don't knows.
Yeah.
A lot of people starting and running new businesses don't know how to answer those questions, and that's a bit scary. Not only does it make the data difficult to interpret, but it makes me worry about what these people are thinking and how they're going to approach the future. I've spent a career being an educator. I can't help thinking education is the key.
Right, yeah.
not just when you're in school, when you're in university, but how do you learn beyond that? How do you access information about AI? AI is transforming the way we produce the global report. It's going to change almost everything. And if you're not ready, you're going to be left behind. So start to think about it now. Start to do something about it now. And I guess when you do a presentation, the most you can hope for is that one or two people in the audience might think about things a bit differently. Okay? And if you're really lucky, they might act a bit differently. One of the benefits of actually presenting this morning is when you go for coffee, you get very quick feedback.
Yes.
And I can tell you that one or two people were talking to me about research ideas and artificial intelligence and how they might do things differently. But the dominant topic, and it's nothing to do with AI, it's not even a lot to do with entrepreneurship.
Right.
It's, are we still able to get tickets for that match?
Okay. Yes.
So people out there are working on that right now.
So I'm just going to do another round on a specific question, which is like, what structural changes, Ehud, do you believe are the most urgent for improving entrepreneurial ecosystems globally? I mean, Steve just mentioned the education component, which of course links very much to the lack of knowledge in AI and its impact. But, you know, from your experience in Israel, can you give a perspective on that, please?
You've asked a great question. I'm going to extend it with your permission.
Okay.
I think as I answer your question, I think I should talk about this elephant in the room, which Steve has been talking about. And this is the fear of failure.
Right.
So the question you should ask possibly is, yes, the ecosystem and the structural changes should be there, but we should address head-on the issue of fear of failure. I think it was a great president that said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And I'm going to go back to the young group of people that addressed us earlier, and I'm assuming they are about the age of my grandchildren, or thereabout. An interesting perspective, Aileen. When I started with GEM, I had no grandchildren at all. Now me and my wife, which is in the audience, have 8 grandchildren, which shows how long I've been with GEM. But here's my point. 3 of my kids are all entrepreneurs. One of them is, we can say, is an entrepreneur turned intrapreneur. He made an exit in Israel, sold his company to eBay and became vice president global for eBay, and had to move with my grandchildren to San Jose, California. My loss, his gain. The second child is an entrepreneur in the beer business. She knew nothing about the beer business, but she thought it's a good business to go in. She overcame her fear of not knowing enough about chemistry and food tech and entered the business, and it's a very successful one. My third child is like after 2 exits, and when I asked him, how do you overcome your fear? I'm a great theoretician. I have no clue about starting a business, but how do you overcome your fear? Among other things, he told me, first of all, I do a very accurate demystification of the field I'm going into. Fintech, medtech, demystification. Second thing, I present a business plan which is very accurate, and he's using AI for that. Thirdly, he says, as a matter of course, almost every day, I take a boxing lesson in order to become more resilient, and I enter what they call ice water bath. I'm not sure whether you've experienced that. And he said, after you've been through those experiences of boxing with a professional trainer, and you went into ice cold water for 3-4 minutes, you're ready to do everything or anything.
Yeah.
So, back to the structural issues, I agree totally with Steve that education is key, and me being a dean for now 30 years or so, I agree totally with that. Secondly, I think that we should be absolutely aware of the fact that demystification can be held different ways, like having a support group, possibly having this social network that my friend, I forgot, that presented yesterday morning, a great presentation. I think it was astrophysicist lady that addressed us yesterday. I think demystifying whatever you're going into is very important. As I said, education is very important, but also become more resilient. Tackle the stuff that really maybe worrisome very much, makes you worried about the future, and just tackle it.
Right.
Last but not least, if I may, government policies. Government policies are very good, but we're all mistaken. Most of government policies that translated into laws or regulations, most of them are not applied or otherwise do not exhaust the potential of these particular policy decisions. In a study at the UK lately, they said that I believe only 60% of government implemented policies were audited. In other words, when we go into the policy regiment, and we did go as a GEM group, as you know, in the global report, we got the policy issues for each country. We have to make sure that the governments not only come up with the policy decisions, but they follow through with them, we are auditing them, and we make sure that we measure the impact of these policies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Of course, I'm coming back to your point on demystification, which very much relates to what one of the entrepreneur speakers earlier said, you don't know what you don't know. And it very much relates then back to the education aspects to actually improve education systems and to move them, accelerate towards a new world more quickly, because education systems are really not taking account of this major revolution that is coming in AI. So we don't know what we don't know. We need to know it, yeah? Alicia, I will turn to you, and this time explore a little bit the Saudi Arabian case, because that's a case that certainly I've been with GEM since 2019, and I've just seen so much change in Saudi Arabia. Surprising change, maybe not surprising to you, but I was amazed at seeing these changes year on year, particularly for women entrepreneurs. It's amazing. Maybe you can just give a bit of context to that and how you've been living it as part of the Saudi Arabian team.
Okay, we have learned a lot. This is the first conclusion, because it's a very different culture. But at the same time, they are very friendly. What I have learned there, first of all, is that if a government is enthusiastic and listens to you, they want to learn from GEM data and apply recommendations, then you can see very big changes. Understand that the first year I went there in 2016, women did not drive. They were not allowed. They could not start the businesses by their own. They need their brother or their father or their husband, someone. In 2017, women drive. They could start a business. So regulations changed drastically from one year to the next. Then they faced the pandemic. When I went there the first time, I dressed like the women there. I feel very well, because you are in the desert and the clothes are very adequate to the temperature, etc. But culturally speaking, they understand this as well. And for example, now they are promoting tourism. To do that, they need to relax these regulations. So now you can go to Saudi Arabia with your European dresses. They just ask for some respect to their human condition and their way of seeing clothing with respect. But all this is changing very fast. So they understand that if they want to open to the world, they need to adapt regulations. But at the same time, they have organized a very big event called BBAN to call all the people, not just from Saudi Arabia, but from the Gulf region, to meet for 3-4 days with all the institutions, entrepreneurs. And then, for example, I collected a lot of contacts just in the BBAN, because there were the institutions, the government, the bankers, the entrepreneurs, everybody was there.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. I could know firsthand lots of entrepreneurs, men and women. And here is a message of my own for all teams. We are very obsessed about gender entrepreneurship, but we should be more obsessed about independent entrepreneurship, one people, man or woman. I think that we should encourage creating entrepreneurial teams to create ambitious businesses that stay in the market, okay, and avoid fear of failure, because if you are several people in a team, it's easy with different specialties. If you don't know about finance, but you have a colleague that does, if you know about techniques, and you can complement. So the idea of independent entrepreneurs is some obsolete, and this is for all countries. We should encourage creating entrepreneurial teams.
Collaborative entrepreneurship, in fact. Yeah.
Yes. And finally, another idea about artificial intelligence is, that, again, we fear what we don't know. Mm-hmm. What has been the message for the world about artificial intelligence? It's going to eliminate human work. Mm-hmm. This is not a positive message. Artificial intelligence is a complement, is a tool that you can use for many things. Know it, learn about it, make it your friend, but don't think that it's going to eliminate us. I am a statistician, as you know. I work with ChatGPT and other tools, and they cannot elaborate what I do. Just cannot. They can give me recommendations, but if I ask artificial intelligence, please calculate this for me, or please give me a time series of this indicator and that, no, you must go to the source. Yeah. So it's able to do many, many things, but not all. Okay, so.
Not all yet.
There is
we
hope
don't know.
for humans. Thank you.
So Jeff, precisely, I mean, there's, I guess the USA has a record of job creation at scale. What do you think distinguishes the economy in the US relative to economies where solo ventures dominate? What do you think you've been doing right in the US? And maybe also, what do you think, relating to what Alicia has just said, are the threats there in terms of generating, jobs?
Yeah, so I was writing down a few notes as my colleagues up on the stage were talking.
Yeah.
So I'll go over those, and hopefully it hits on your points. Mm-hmm. The U.S. has the SBA program. We have government-enhanced loan programs. We have grants. We have the SBIR, Small Business Innovative Research Program. We have all these programs that people tap into, especially academics. I will tell you that one of the things that's happened over the years, though, is that we've gone a little bit astray and let programs get too big and not enough quite frankly, like all of us in the room here, not enough entrepreneurs controlling the purse strings and kind of looking at things.
Good point.
So one of the, I'll give you an example from a few years ago. I mean, how many of you, if you were starting a business today, how many of you raise your hand if you would like $500 million? How many of you, if I said, I will take your house, I will take everything you have, if you're not in existence 3 years after, how many of you would still take the $500 million and think you would last for at least 3 years, right? I mean, $500 million. We gave $500 million to a company called Solyndra. It was bureaucrats giving money to bureaucrats who were not entrepreneurs, who were not prepared to run a business. And when you give too much money to entrepreneurs without any strings attached, you end up with just that. I mean, they found out that there was, I forget what the number was, but it was in hundreds of thousands of dollars that they needed a retreat for the executives to go to Las Vegas. And this was when they were already failing, right? So one of the most interesting things, and that's why, at Babson, one of the latest things that we have is this idea of entrepreneurial leadership, and that is that entrepreneurial leaders are needed everywhere. They're needed in NGOs, they're needed in entrepreneurship, startups, they're needed in large corporations, in government, because we need to reevaluate and look at some of these things again. So one of the greatest ideas that I just heard recently is having strings attached to government grants. So I'll give you an example. I worked for an entrepreneur on getting an SBIR grant for $2 million. This is mid, kind of early 2000s. And 3 years later, so we raised $2 million on 2 phases of SBIR grants. And 2 years later, he sold the company for $6 million. Mm-hmm. He got $6 million. What did the government get in return? And so one of the ideas being floated right now is that we should have something attached. If you get a grant or you get support, and I know these entrepreneurs are probably getting some great support, wouldn't you like to pay it back? And wouldn't that be important for you to pay it back to help support the next generation of great entrepreneurs? And that's why, to me, one of the movements now with the pandemic and with the global financial crisis before that is taking an entrepreneurial leadership and entrepreneurial mindset approach and looking at things. So, for example, in the United States, one of the things we're looking at now is Black entrepreneurship in the United States. Blacks see more opportunities and they start more businesses, but guess what? Fewer of them make it across the chasm and become established businesses. So somewhere in that 2 or 3 years after they start, after they see an opportunity, they're not able to make it. But what do we talk about? We talk about providing money to start up businesses. They don't have a problem with starting the businesses. We need to support them in how do you transition, how do you grow, how do you scale, how do you make it so that business will survive? Because the real thing when we talk about entrepreneurship and the impact, a lot of times we talk about job creation and wealth creation and impact on society. And the real acceleration comes when you get to that established business. It's years 3 to 10 where all of a sudden you create new jobs, where you create new wealth, where companies like yours eventually will be giving back to society. So we need to be more strategically focused on what it is. The support is great. The support helps people. But I think we could do more by just doing it better and really looking at what we're doing, what are the outcomes. So anyway, I'm not very passionate about that, if you couldn't tell. That's where you laugh a little bit.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, passion is something that we have a lot of at GEM, I think. It really, really struck me when I joined the organization in 2019 that it was almost as passionate. At one stage I worked with an NGO, almost as passionate as an NGO, I'm actually going to give you, the audience, although I don't see you very well, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask questions in a moment. But I would like to just turn to you, Steve, because Steve has had several hats with GEM. He is the lead author of the Global Report, but before he started doing that, he was actually heading up GEM Lebanon. And you know, we find it is a challenge to maintain, you know, a sufficient number of countries in different continents to be able to call ourselves global. And so we are very globally affected by crisis, by war, by any kind of uncertainty. We are very, very affected by that. And I think Lebanon has been one example. I hope you don't mind. This is a bit of a surprise question here. Lebanon is one example, and I just realized that with some of the very recent events, I just suddenly got expressions of interest in GEM from Lebanon again, because GEM Lebanon just closed off during the last, what, 6 years? 6 years, yeah.
5 years.
5 years, yeah. That's right, since 2019, the year I came. So that kind of indicates that, for me, it's at least one small indicator that things are opening up again. But maybe you can give us a perspective on how crises and these uncertainties affect entrepreneurial ecosystems to the detriment, and maybe even, you know, how does it affect the entrepreneurial spirit in general, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I learned very quickly in Lebanon is that entrepreneurial activity rates were much higher than I was used to. Partly because so many people were relatively poor, partly because there was no support system. Mm-hmm. For many people, if you didn't work for yourself, you didn't eat. But also, it's always difficult to get finance to run a national team. And I want to come back to something that you said. I spent years in the UK working with a development agency, trying to make a region more prosperous. And one of the things that always happened was that if the agency provided support, whoever received that had to account for it. So I'm astonished to hear I can go to the States and get money and not have to account for it. So I was always used to that. And GEM is very little different. If you're going to get support to run a GEM national team, you have to show what you give in return. Mm-hmm. And I think we've shown that over the years. Sometimes, sooner or later, the money runs out. There's not a lot you can do with it, or circumstances change. Mm-hmm. But the best way to convince others to support your GEM team is to demonstrate the value of those results. And the value is not just practical advice, it's academic output, it's intellectual property. By the end of 5 years engagement with GEM Lebanon, I knew more about the Lebanese economy than most people in the country.
Right.
So GEM is a good way of learning, but always you have to justify yourself. You have to show what value you're adding. Crises happen. GEM suffered a little during COVID, but not that much.
True.
And we saw yesterday, entrepreneurship suffered a little during the financial crisis, but not that much. Enterprise is enormously resilient. Okay. The most optimistic thing about the GEM results this year for me was that high proportion of people leaving a business and intending to start another. To me, that says leaving a business is not that bad. And it's certainly the fear of the unknown. Yeah? The people who don't have that fear are prepared to start again, and that's really important. Finally, I've been involved with GEM for a long time. The most depressing thing about GEM for me is how, when we look at those entrepreneurial environments, for more than half of economies, entrepreneurial education in schools, and I've mentioned this before,
so often,
and I will
yes.
again, entrepreneurial education in schools is rated bottom year after year after year, and it's so easy to do something about it. So why is nothing, well, sorry, I can't say nothing's happening, because some countries have addressed this, but the majority have not. This is something to get right now. And if you do something about it...
Especially with this AI revolution coming, yes.
There's a notion in economics of the counterfactual. You don't know what didn't happen. Okay? You can't measure what didn't happen. I can tell you by not introducing notions of enterprise to school kids, generations are foregoing the opportunity of starting those businesses, and we can do something about that right now.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm going to open up for questions. If I do this, I can actually see. But, you know, you have to, if you want to ask, that's better. So, you do look beautiful. You can just put up your hand, and what I'm going to ask you to do is stand up, just introduce yourself, and a question. So that means
question here at the front.
2 sentences. So introduce yourself, your back, you know, where you're coming from in the discussion, and your question. Okay? So let's see. We have somebody up front there. Hello.
Hello.
Oh.
Is this working?
Yeah. Yes.
Let's see if I can phrase it adequately. Have you seen a relevant impact within the communities where entrepreneurial growth has been established? I mean, is there, because you have talked, for instance, Jeff, you have talked about Black entrepreneurial communities, and maybe the representative from Israel can also speak about somehow how entrepreneurial culture might bind together areas, communities that are in conflict. You have also talked about Lebanon, Steve, and I would like to know if there is like a substantious or maybe a relevant data that shows a benefit for the communities that have this entrepreneurial enterprises growth. I don't know if I somehow articulated what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Can you start, Jeff, and maybe Ehud
Sure.
will have a comment as well. Yeah. Thank you.
And I'll turn my mic is on. Thank you for the question. That's a great question. I think the important thing with a lot of this is that we look at it that within country versus comparative across country, and the fact that we can monitor, especially when we have 25 years of data, and we can monitor things, you know, such as financial crisis and the pandemic and everything within. And if we had just been gathering the data as the US, even when you look at these like ethnic differences, gender differences in startups, if you were just gathering it in the United States, you wouldn't know, because you couldn't compare relative to what was the shock of the pandemic, right? So we could go on the pandemic, we could say, wow, everybody dropped by 2 points. In terms of within the groups, I think, you know, I think GEM makes a huge contribution by the fact that we're gathering the data first, and then we're putting out the reports. So especially the women's report, I mean, absolutely amazing in terms of the impact and the number of people that cite the research and go to the webinar where we do the launch. That is incredible because what it does is it brings to light important information for policymakers, entrepreneurs around the world to be able to do things like say there is a gap. There was a greater gap in the United States between men and women startups 10 years ago than there is now. And I think actually reports like GEM make a big difference because we show that there's the gap there. Then we educate people with that. We educate policymakers, and we say we have to do more with promoting women entrepreneurs. And lo and behold, that gap starts to close. But then, as I was saying before, we need to be strategic and say, okay, how do we get it from startup to an existing business that's a continuing business for 10 to 20 years? Because just starting a business is not really what it's all about. Starting a business, we could all go out and start a business this afternoon, just sell something in the street and we could call it a business. But how do we create something that's sustainable in the long run?
Ehud?
I'm going to quote, as part of my answer, this great presentation I was exposed to yesterday by Cesare. Where is Cesare? Is he in the crowd here? No?
No.
Fine. Cesare comes from Luxembourg. Yesterday he had a paper presented regarding entrepreneurship by minorities. And I don't remember everything that he said about that, but he did indicate the fact that minority groups, immigrants, etc., tend to be more entrepreneurial than the locals, quote unquote. And I'm going to point out to an interesting fact which you may not know about. Israel basically is consisting of about 80–85% of people that are not more than second or third generation in their place. So by definition, all of them are minorities, all of them are immigrants. In a way, it may explain part of the resilience that you see in some of those businesses, and that partially explains what's possibly the question was all about. Then there's the issue of education. I don't know if you know, but by my faith, education, like in China, for example, education is rated very high. Sometimes I look at the GEM results and I say, maybe we don't ask the right questions, and I wonder about the numbers. But basically, as you are very good in what we call STEM courses, and you insist on math and physics and chemistry and languages like English, French, sometimes Russian, you do have eventually graduates of this education system which are multifaceted, multicultural, ready to face fear, possibly. There are other, obviously, intrinsic things I'd like to point out, but I, again, would like to give credit to my friend Cesare about his insights yesterday in the presentation. Last point. Over the years, for some reason, and now I'm talking about education, and obviously Steve has lots of information and background, and also Jeff, as professors and deans. I was involved with an interesting program called ECLA. Some of you might be familiar with that. Acronyms, Entrepreneurship and Competitiveness in Latin America, which we founded at Columbia University. It was in partnership with this great organization called Endeavor. And it was amazing to see those people that came over to those seminars. Some months it was on campus, some other periods it was in the country from which the different students came from. And I'll have to share with you one experience whereby a group of people from Mexico, entrepreneurs to be, came with this great idea. They say, we are going now to invent a new way to build houses. And we asked them, what do you mean? Houses have been built for the last thousands of years. And they said, no, no, no. We are going now to build a house from the roof down. So this is interesting. Why do you offer that? And they said something interesting. Somewhere in the forests of Mexico, people with not much education, good people, farmers, etc., have a little bit of money. And when they have a little bit of money, they basically put the pavement or the floor. Then if they have some more money, they put the walls. And then if they have more money, they put the roof. Many times, and you see many of these houses with no roofs, but there is the refrigerator and the dishwasher and the phones, everything under these no-roof houses. So we've got this great idea, and we're going to build a house from the top down. If you have a little bit of money, the first thing we do, we put 4 poles and we put a roof. And whenever we have some more money, by the end of the process, we'll put the floors in. The reason I mentioned it to you, sometimes universities are very stale. They are very slow to change. But if you invite the right kind of students, the students will make the program much more relevant and entrepreneurial. Columbia University included. And so, back to what the question was, I believe when you've got good students, you make professors to be better. And if they're better, the whole organization, the whole university will become better. So it's a roundabout way to explain to you what I think makes for a good entrepreneurial society. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another question anywhere? Where? Sorry, have we found somebody who has a question? Yes?
Yes.
Oh, okay, up there, yes, sorry. Can you introduce yourself, your organization first? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Abulfaz Shirazi from Zerwa Tech. We are a startup company in Bilbao dedicated to the development of AI for engineering companies. Currently, we are dedicated to the software development for maritime and aerospace industry.
Okay.
I think companies need AI, and they have 2 options. Either hire an AI developer or outsource their needs. My question is, what is your opinion about this, and how does it affect the ecosystem?
Does anyone have a view on that? Yes?
I'd like to volunteer. Let me read to you 2 sentences. By integrating AI into various aspects of their operations, entrepreneurs can enhance efficiency, make informed decisions, and reduce the inherent risks associated with starting a new business. This technological support not only alleviates the fear of failure, but also positions startups for sustainable growth and success. These sentences I've just read to you were generated by an AI application.
Self-promotion.
I'm just saying. So, yeah, right. I'd like to go back to basics on this one, though. I think we'll have more and more entrepreneurs that are indeed using AI as a raison d'etre for their businesses. And I think they're smart doing so. In my view, and I'm no expert in that, it seems to me that possibly tailoring AI by SICs, in other words, standard industrial codes, doing that for particular verticals in industry or the economy would be very helpful. And I myself would invest in any company that would leverage AI which is focused on particular verticals. It doesn't matter which one. Agri-tech, medtech, fintech, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another question? We still have just a little bit of time. Is there anybody?
Oh, there's one right in the center there.
Right in the middle.
All right, yes, thank you. Oh. Yes, I'm getting it. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
My name is Albert Sitja. I'm currently a researcher in the University of Girona in Spain. And I have heard from many of you that the problem of entrepreneurship is related to education. The question is to any one of you that could respond on that is, based on the data that you have gathered these 25 years on the GEM reports, do you know which are the best practices that university or the education systems have been used, and to in which countries have been implemented in order to change substantially the reports or the TIA indicators?
Alicia, did you get that question?
I am not sure if I understood well the question. What are the factors that can improve the tier rate?
Yes.
Yes, this is a concrete question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. In my opinion, it depends on the country and the historical moment and many, many factors. The tier rate is a very complex indicator, like all the entrepreneurial phenomenon. That is why it is not easy to make general recommendations. You must be very specific at the country, at the historical moment, how is the economy, etc. What you can apply to one economy maybe is not applicable to another. It depends. For example, in a country like Spain, you have a lot of public and private employment, so you cannot expect a very high rate of a very high tier rate. Some people think that a low tier rate is a bad thing. It is not good or bad. In Uganda, they have 45%, and it's not good. So you need to analyze country by country the historical moment, how is the economy, how is even in the region, because Spain is in Europe, and now it is conditioned by European Union policies, etc. So it's not easy at all. So when you look at your specific, I have done this exercise, for example, in Oman. My colleagues of Oman are there and know that I went there with Aileen to have a session with government institutions. And we analyzed the specific situation of Oman. And for example, one problem that is common to all the countries in the Gulf is volatility. When they begin this transformation process from oil to diversify, there are, as Jeff said, lots of failures. Now, for example, if you look at data at Saudi Arabia, you can see a very healthy rate of established businesses, and this happens in these 8 years. It took 8 years. You cannot just push entrepreneurship. You need quality entrepreneurship, as Jeff said. You need that these initiatives stay in the market. So it's very complex.
Thanks,
Maybe
Alicia.
my colleagues want to add something else.
Well, I can only take one more comment because we're actually going over time. So, and Steve got there first. We're giving the last word to our lead author. I'm afraid I can't take any more questions, unfortunately. But yeah, go ahead.
We've got a great deal of data. We know a lot about how to measure the level of entrepreneurial activity. We know a lot about how to measure the quality of the entrepreneurial environment. What we don't know a lot about is what is the relationship between one and the other. We do know that entrepreneurship can flourish in the most awful environments. We've got high levels in Ukraine, we've got high levels, as I said, in Lebanon, in very difficult circumstances. We do know that we have some very high-quality entrepreneurial environments, India as an example, where the level of entrepreneurship is actually quite low. So there is no easy connection between the two, but I would leave you with one thought, that a quality entrepreneurial environment is not just about encouraging new businesses. It's about helping those new businesses to transition
scale,
into established businesses. When you've got 4 times more new businesses than you've got established businesses, you're bursting with entrepreneurship, but you're pretty poor in terms of employment and job prospects. You have to find the right balances.
That's a good parting message for lunch, I think. You have to find the right balance. And yes, pardon me?
Picture first.
Yes, I'm just going to hand over to Anna, or to who wants to. You want to come up and say something about the logistics? Is it, or? Yeah, but first of all, I'd like to thank our panel for this long, and thank you very much. Thank you.